If you have Bibles, you can open to Judges chapter 11. If you remember last week, we kind of ended up where the Israelites had been taking idols throughout the years. Eventually, they compromised the one true God in their worship and what they would accept as religion and practice, not just religious practice, but how they lived their lives. And so they started taking idols from all the nations round about them. And because of that, God could no longer defend them. God left their presence. God did not go out with their armies when they were attacked. And so for 18 long years, they've been crushed by people all around them, the Philistines and the Ammonites in particular. Now Israel has cried out to the Lord, asked that he would intervene once again, as he had in their past history that they know of what God has done in the past. And God initially says, no, go to the gods that you brought in. Go to the gods that you worship and see what they can do. And they take the idols, they throw their idols away, they keep crying out to God, keep pursuing God, and God finally says that he can bear the misery of Israel no longer, and he will deliver them again. And I mentioned to you about the parable of the unjust judge in the book of Luke. We'll finish chapter 10, verse 17 says this. Then the sons of Ammon were summoned, and they camped in Gilead. And the sons of Israel gathered together and camped in Mizpah. And the people, the leaders of Gilead, said to one another, who is the man who will begin to fight against the sons of Ammon? He shall become head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. So we see that this the military campaign is about to begin. Just on load. I'm sorry a minute. Move that down there. Gilead and Mizpah are on the east side of the Jordan River. Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have been living there for quite a while. And now the Ammonites have come up and they've stationed themselves 3 miles from the army of Israel. Pretty close. And now here's the tension about to build for the 19th year in a row. The conversation that the leaders have, so now we've got everybody at Mizpah. You've got the leaders and the chiefs of the tribes, and you got all the regular army, as it were, roundabout. And someone says, who's going to lead us into battle this year? Who's going to begin the fight? Because for the last 18 years, they've died. Whoever's led, they've died, they've perished, and we've all had to scatter to the hills. So who's going to lead us this year? Because starting today, things are going to be different. They're like Minnesota Vikings fans. This is the year that's going to be different than all the previous years we've ever had. We're going to be victorious to the end. Nobody steps up. Nobody wants to lead. Not just lead this battle, but they said, if you lead this battle, you will also be the head, the chief, the president without any chance of impeachment. You will be over us. Okay? Judges chapter 11 deals with the man who is going to lead this charge, lead the people of Israel. He is the 9th judge, and this is the 5th time in this period that God is going to be delivering Israel from their enemies. Verse 1. Now Jephthah, the Gileadite, was a valiant warrior, but he was the son of a harlot, and Gilead was the father of Jephthah. So Gilead is the father, but he's also the name of the town. Sort of like St. Paul, Minnesota. No, but you know how they just named their towns after who they were. St. Paul did not name. Gilead's wife bore him sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, you shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. And worthless fellows gathered themselves about Jephthah, and they went out with him. And it came about after a while that the sons of Ammon fought against Israel. And it happened when the sons of Ammon fought against Israel, that the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob, and they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our chief, that we may fight against the sons of Ammon." Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Did you not hate me and drive me from my father's house? So why did you come to me now when you're in trouble?" Almost what God said. And you've already made your choices, go to those people. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "For this reason we have now returned to you, that you may go with us and fight with the sons of Ammon and become head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." So Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you take me back to fight against the sons of Ammon, and the Lord gives them to me, will I become your head?" And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord is witness between us. Surely we will do as you have said." Then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and chief over them all. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord in Mizpah. So, y'all realize that in just 18 short months, we have another presidential election, right? Who do you look for in a leader? What is it that we are looking for in a leader? What is Israel looking for in a leader? Well, some of us, we look for a business. How is it going to help our business? Whoever we elect, we hope that will increase our farm prices or education or whatever is important to us. And we tend to compromise some values for others. For example, you might love the Second Amendment and love to be able to have a gun. However, the person you vote for is actually going to help your business, and even though he's against the Second Amendment where you can have a gun in your home, he is going to help increase farm prices by 100%. We will tend to want to vote for the leader that's going to affect us the most, what's most important in our life. And we might even compromise some other area in order to get him in. Understood? So, some people have military experience, some people have certain things in their platform, some people just have a charm, kind of a charismatic way about them. And so, you ever heard somebody go, "How can you stand that person going for office?" And like, do you hear what they say? And like, "Well, I don't really agree with them, but man, they're a good speaker, aren't they?" And they tend to, just from the right, they tend to vote for them for that reason. Depending how desperate you are, we will make concessions if we feel that they will deliver what we so urgently need. So it depends on your urgency. Israel is urgent, right? They are an urgent need. They're about to be destroyed once again by the sons of Ammon. But this time they want to stand up to them for the 19th time. And so now they're willing to go back to someone they discarded however many years ago, and they ask Jephthah. Jephthah had not sinned, had he? It wasn't his doing. He had nothing to do with being the son of a harlot. It's not his fault that his dad did not marry that woman, that he married some other woman. But there's a stigma that's attached. No matter who you are, where you go, something in your past sometimes comes to you and they go, "Do you know who they are? They've done this, or they've done this, or that person happened to be." And now that's who you are. You're labeled as sorts. The sons of Gilead did not want their half-brother Jephthah to have any of the inheritance. Almost like Hagar and Ishmael versus Isaac and Sarah, right? Sarah wanted Ishmael out and Hagar out. She wanted no inheritance with my son. So we know three things about Jephthah. Number one, he's illegitimate. So he's got that against him. Number two, he's a valiant warrior. If there's one attribute about him that they really need, it's the fact that he's a warrior. And a valiant warrior at that. So apparently he's got courage where none of the other leaders want to step out. Not this time. but he's a man who's gotten the job done. I would say he's a man like David, who fought guerrilla warfare, very cunning, was able to get the most out of his men. The third thing was, you see who his army is? Not a bunch of well-trained, highly educated, a bunch of worthless fellows. Another thing. You know the birds of a feather flock together, right? Worthless fellows are attracted by other worthless fellows. And they're gathered around a worthless fellow called Jephthah. But who made them worthless? Who made them worthless? Who labeled them as worthless? Japheth labeled them as people of worth, of value, and those men were ready to fight for Jephthah. And apparently he had quite a name for himself and these worthless men who went with him. And that's why you see a lot of clubs and organizations and gang members and cults. They've been rejected, or they just want to do something with people of their own. The church, by the way, is supposed to have all kinds of people here. We don't judge people. We don't look at their past. They're just part of people who are forgiven, correct? The importance of not judging people is the task that belongs only to God. God judges, not man, not us. Verse 9, Jephthah recognizes that if he is victorious, it is the Lord. So you see that he has a relationship with the Lord. He is not part of the people who took idols in, like all the rest of Israel had done. He recognizes and acknowledges God would give the victory to him. And if God does, will you give me this place? They make a vow, a solemn oath. They swear to him and then swear by God as witness that they will do that. You lead us, you're victorious, you are now over us all for the rest of your life, for all times. How important is your word to other people? Now, anybody else in this day and age, if that was the deal, it'd have to be drawn up by a bunch of lawyers, looking at the whereases and whoases and all kinds of stuff, and signed and notarized, so it's ironclad contract, so that nobody can get out of it, correct? But those guys are, you got my word. And that meant something, that God was their witness. If you ever went back on your word, if you were called a liar, you went back on your vow and your word to someone or something, you would never be trusted again. Your family would be, don't you know him? Oh, well, his dad back in the day did whatever. I mean, it would just go on. And you were ostracized. You would never go to business with him, not ever. And maybe not even your children. I mean, it was a horrible thing not to keep your word. That's throughout Scripture. We'll look at that later too. Jephthah, in verse 11, goes to Mizpah and makes the whole declaration public. Now he's got the whole nation, all the people, the common people, the elders, they're all together and swears before God, this is what's going I'm going to lead you to victory, and then I will be your head, your king, your chief. Verses 12 through 28. We will not read this. I'm just going to give you what happens. Jephthah's first act as head of state is to negotiate peace between the sons of Israel and the sons of Ammon. And so he asks them, what are you doing here? You're trespassing. You're in our town. You're in our land. Why are you here? Important to know your history. Important to know why you are here. And so Ammon comes back and says, you stole this land from us. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us, the Ammonites. When you came here, you just settled here, and you should have never done that. Jephthah comes back and says, no, you don't understand. That land did not belong to Ammonites. It belonged to the Amorites, two different nations. The Amorites, who were Og, king of the Amorites, Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Heshbon. Those two men had conflict with Israel. When Israel was in that wilderness, and as Moses was leading them, he was leading them to the east, then he's going to head north the Jordan River and the mountain ranges here, and he's going to go up north and get across from Jericho, and that's where they're going to cross the Jordan River. Okay? So as he makes this turn and heads there, that's the Ammonite village. The Amorite village and community and nation. They just asked for permission to get through there so they could camp across from Jericho. And Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og came out in battle formation and tried to destroy Israel, but God gave them those two kings, and they destroyed them totally. We read about that a couple months ago in some of that conflict. They settled there. Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh asked Moses if they could have this part because it was a good pasture land, and they had a lot of livestock. Moses, went to God. God said, yeah, that's okay. And so those 2.5 tribes are on the east side. The other 9.5 tribes, which would be more land for those 9.5 tribes, instead of having 12 tribes, it's 9.5. Got to be on the west side of the Jordan, in the area called Israel. All right? So number one, he didn't understand it never did belong to Ammon. Number two, they lost it when they fought against them. Number three, they had been there for 300 years, developing homes, businesses, trades, living there, worshiping for 300 years in that land. And the last thing he says to Ammon, the sons of Ammon, is this. He says, you better just stay in the land your God, Chemosh, gave you, because we're going to keep the land our God, Yahweh, gave us, which includes this land that you're in now. Could you imagine, if you think about it, 300 years ago, 1719 would be the year, right? Could you imagine if some people from back then said, you know what? So the French Canadians came down and said, this was our land. We want the Louisiana Purchase back. We think Thomas Jefferson ripped us off. We know you guys are a bunch of scums. We want all of this land back. It belongs to us. We deserve it. Get out. And then England goes, hey, good idea. Do 13 colonies. We lost you guys. I mean, that was the message. You beat us here. Now we really established this place. We want it back. And if that happens, the Native Americans are going to go, we want you all out. This is our land, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You can't go back 300 years. God gave them the land. God orchestrated that. And he's trying to say how foolish it is to try to take something that God has given us. I'm not trying to say right or wrong whatever happened in our history. I'm just saying, you're going to give it back, So, Judges 27, Judges 11, 27, and 28, to finish the chapter. The speech went nowhere. Did not affect him at all. Even the reasoning behind all that went nowhere. And so Jephthah says, I have not sinned. I have not broken any covenant or anything like that. I have not sinned against you, but you are doing me wrong by making war against me. May the Lord, the judge today between the sons of Israel and the sons of Ammon. But the king of the sons of Ammon disregarded the message which Jephthah sent him. So you can't negotiate with terrorists. You cannot negotiate with dictators, with tyrants. They are narrow-minded, narrow-focused. If this is what they want, there is no other compromise. And so war is going to take place. And next week, we're going to look at the war. We're going to look at the battle. But more importantly, next week, we're going to look at the high personal cost of that victory from a vow that Jephthah takes. And I want to leave you with a question for next week. All right? So all week we're going to have to think about this question. Which is more relevant? Keeping the word of God or keeping your word to God? Understand that question? What is more important? Keeping the word of God or keeping your word to God? It is okay to read ahead of time. There's no penalty for that. I'll I'll tell you what I think, and it could be kind of interesting, just whatever you think. But I want us to go back today with two things to consider. Number one, understand history. Jephthah knew his history. He knew what God had provided and what God told him not to do. They didn't go farther east. They only went as far as God told them and no farther. God gave them that, so he knew that that was their land, that they were correct and Amnon was incorrect and sinning. Okay, so you should know something about your history. American history. I like American history and world history and how people get there, but it's confusing. It seems like it's changing all the time. Every couple of years, it seems like somebody comes up with a new thing, and the things I believed back when I was a kid are different now. I just talked to my father-in-law yesterday about something, and he said that he just saw this guy, a news reporter, going to a university, and he's speaking to this woman who's a senior in college, and he asked the woman, who won the Civil War? And she thought, oh, I don't know, I don't really look at politics. He went, no. Who won our Civil War? She goes, I don't like wars. I don't like anything to do with wars or battles. No, but who won our Civil War? Well, well, who fought me? Maybe if you told me who fought it, I could tell you. He goes, no. Her boyfriend comes up and says, what are you guys talking about? And so the reporter says, excuse me, do you know who won our Civil War? He says, I'm sick and tired of people fighting all the time. We should do away with guns. And he didn't know. So seniors at a university didn't know our American history. Have you heard the reason why Israel is a state is because Jewish people lied about the Holocaust? I've heard that is becoming things that people believe. They do not believe that 6 million people, Jews, in concentration camps were murdered by Nazi Germans. They think it's all a ruse so that they can have this land in 1948. The Gallup poll says that 30% of Americans now do not believe that the Holocaust either happened or was as bad as it was, led to believe. 42% of millennials. So the younger you are, the more you tend, it's the trend not to believe in the history that we know, okay? Church. I had no idea of the history of church until I started reading about I get the New Testament, the Gospels, I understand what the apostles went through, somewhat. But do you know your church history? Do you know what it took for those people 500 years ago, 600 years ago, 300 years ago, who went through the Inquisition? They're just trying to get the gospel, the Bible, in their native language of German or French or English. And they were murdered. They were torn in two. They were drowned. They were burned to the stake. I mean, they thought it was more important to give their life up for the cause of Christ than to turn their back on this generation. So church, the Bible, they mean an awful lot to me because I understand where it came from. Okay, know your history. That's number one. Number two, the way the family treated Jephthah. How do you treat people who are different than you? You ever wonder how many good people, how many people who wanted to come to church or wanted to somehow fellowship with a church, an organization, but were turned away because of our good, moral, high conduct that we have, the bar that we raise for everybody before they can come through the doors? And I'm not talking about our church. I am not talking about it. I've many churches over many different years. I've heard so many stories that makes me kind of sick of who they turned away. A young woman who went to college, she got pregnant and she had an abortion. Two bad things. She got pregnant out of wedlock, and then she covered it with the abortion, but she couldn't. And of course, that little bit of information got back to some of the people back home. And this girl lived with this shame and this guilt, and she just was, didn't like what she did, but she did it. Now what can you do, right? But she was hoping she could come back to church at least because she just needed to feel Jesus one more time. And when she got to church, she said several people started looking at her, pointing at her, whispering, and some were like, she felt so unwelcome she had to run out of that place. Because, we don't sin like that, do we? There's a certain sin we do, but we wouldn't ever do that. Not accepted, not in our group. We read a book many years ago called Love, Acceptance, and Forgiveness. Talked about a lot of people. People who've been divorced, they're not necessarily welcome back in church. You're like, oh, no, you're divorced. You're going to look for my husband, or you're going to look for my wife, or whatever, And so all of a sudden you're a little bit out there someplace. Single parent, whatever. Are you welcoming? Are you bringing them in? There's the old, there's young, there's black, white, we got Mexican, we got all kinds. Do you are they with you? Right? Do you love them as Christ loved the church? Is that how you accept those people? There was a pastor in that book. Large city, large church. The pastor had an affair with a woman in the church. He acknowledged the adultery. He divorced his wife. He married that woman. He lost his credentials. He got secular work. His new wife is pregnant, has a child. He's been out of the church or any church for a couple years. He feels horrible. He's asked Jesus for forgiveness, right? But that's a bad sin, is it not? Adultery, right? Married. His wife, she was a nice woman. What do you do about a guy like that? He wanted to go back to church. He just wanted to try to feel God again somehow with godly people. And so him and his wife and her little girl went to one church. And before he got to the door, they recognized him and they asked him to please leave. Don't come in here. And he tried another church on another Sunday when he had enough courage to try. And he sat in the back for a while, but it didn't take long before someone went, hey, that's so-and-so over there. And when at the end of the service, he was asked not to come back next Sunday. We know who you are. Okay? Over and over again, he'd asked for some fellowship. One by one, they turned him down. And so he did finally call this one pastor. He said, my wife and I and my little girl would like to come to church. I want my daughter to grow up in Sunday school and youth groups and family camps and all those things. And the pastor is like, well, sure, of course you can come to our church. He goes, let me tell you who I am. And he gives him his name. He goes, oh, yeah, I've heard the story, right? Everybody has. He said, I'll tell you what. I'll welcome you in our church. I don't know about the congregation. But I'm saying, come Sunday morning. I'll make sure I'm there to greet you. And so he does. And a really interesting thing happened in that church, different than all the other churches before. Is that, of course, the people recognized him, they knew who he was. But somebody invited that husband and wife and a little girl over to their house for lunch. Hey, come on in. They welcomed them, not just to the church, but into their lives. Into their lives. The wife just started crying, the husband was crying, because for the first time, not only did they feel forgiven by God for their sin, but accepted by people who would accept sinners in their church. I'd much rather be with you in a church of 30 or 40 people than a church of 4,000 hypocrites. I'd much rather us have the love of Christ in us so that anybody who comes through these doors would in a moment say, you know what, we just felt welcomed here. We felt good here. We felt like you guys did not judge us here. And then we'll just keep coming. Our job is not to judge. Our job is to love. And Jesus says, you know what the world will see? If you love one another, they'll see me. That's our response to everyone. Amen? God bless you.